I'd like to thank all the participants for taking the time to be here with us today. 네, 그럼 먼저 제주 국제화 어디까지 왔나 그 빛과 그림자 세션을 주관하고 있는
And I would like to invite the president of Kang from the Jeju Global Society Association for welcoming remarks.
Good morning. I am Kang Bop-son, chairman of the Jeju Global Society Association. Back in 1991, which is about 30 years ago, to keep up with the internationalization of the Jeju, how to make Jeju international, and how to make our people internationalize, and how we can bring about the knowledge for the Jeju people to be part of the global society. That kind of huge question and the challenge was upon us. Based on that responsibility, we created the Jeju Global Society Association, which was about 30 years ago. 30 years has passed now. Many people call Jeju as Treasure Island. It's been about 30 years when our predecessors tried to make and create Jeju as a treasure island, and we have accumulated about 30 years of history. For the time being, we have suggested many things to the Jeju province, and as a leader and as a resident of Jeju Island, I have worked hard. And that 30 years, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude for your work, for the participants, and also our predecessors. And now 30 years has passed. And right now, we have our theme today, the light and the shadow. How far has Jeju Internationalization come? This is the theme for today to discuss. And with this question, and this is your responsibility to answer the question with concerted effort. And we have to listen to the discussion of the panelists and feel free to ask any questions. Thank you for the panelists for your participation. And here, our moderator is a person co-created the Jeju Global Society Association together. And thank you very much for the panelists. Let's work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Kang, for your encouraging remarks. Thank you again. And from now on, please allow me to begin the session today. Let me introduce to you another chairman of the session, Ko Chung-seok, professor and also president of former Jeju National University. So he's the president of International Peace Foundation and former Jeju National University president and chairman of Iodo Research Society. Let me turn my microphone to him. Please welcome him with a big hand. Good morning to you all. As Chairman Kang briefly mentioned, it's been 30 years since the establishment of the Jeju Global Society Association, and you were the founders back then. And here with us is also Kim Yong-bum, our former Director General was there, and also Kang Seung-ho was also there. Back then, internationalization was not up to the surface. And I think back then we thought that intellectuals have to come together to play our role in our society. Back then, the former Minister of Education, Kim Yong-sik, and also Professor Shin Yong-hwa, and also Kim Se-hoon, professor who just passed away, and also Kim Dong-sung, a professor just passed away, and Moon Jong-in, and also Professor Ko, and also Vice Minister Yang were the founders back then to establish our association. I think we have to think about what we have achieved so far. As you are here with us today, I think we all need to reflect ourselves upon the achievement accomplished by association. As we proceed the session, I'm sure there will be more time for us to talk to each other. I would like to proceed the session in Korean, so I would like to ask interpreters to interpret well the session. First of all, I would like to introduce to you Kim Yong-bum, former Director General of the Yonhap News Agency. He is a really big figure in the media, and I remember that he was the best and the brightest in the high school years. And as the person from the media in Korea, he is well known for his excellence in his job. And also, I know he has much affection for his hometown. So, in the midst of difficulties, and also to see his the juniors in association, he came all the way. Please welcome him with a big hand. When I was young, former Director General Kim Yong-bum was the person that we always wanted to be like, and years passed by, so we grew old. And I can give you 10 minutes to you, but I want to proceed this session this way. After key presentations, I want to open up the floor for participants to hear more. As a person, intellectual person who live in Jeju Island, we talk about the Jeju is like a free international city. But I think we really need to precisely identify the current status of Jeju Island. So during the session today, rather than spending all the time for you to speak about what you want to, I want to spend more time with the participants. So the international free Jeju City, it's been 15 years since its establishment. So I want to check the weaknesses and also room for improvement. So please make your presentation concise so that we can all go back home with key takeaway messages. And also, I want to ask you questions in the middle of the way.
Hi, my name is Kim Yong-bum. The introduction was very huge, and I'm not sure whether I can keep up with that expectation. When we are talking about the international relations, other than those who are living here, we have much experiences. And back in 1970s, I've been in Tokyo as a journalist and went to Washington and stayed there 4 years. And it was renewed, so I stayed there 4 years. And in Washington, I had a really memorable experience. So Gorbachev, a Soviet president, went to the U.S. to meet then U.S. president to discuss many issues. And after a while, the Berlin Wall was tumbled down and the Soviet Union was dismantled. After that, back in 1991, the Soviet itself was turned into Russia. That was really memorable experience, which is also basic of my discussion today. So, as the President Ko already mentioned. This association, when it was first established, first issue that we discussed back then was what is the meaning of internationalization of Jeju Island? That was huge discussion about that and also the controversies on it. But we didn't have clear answer to it. So we failed to have a clear definition on the meaning of the internationalization. We just thought that let the people around the world know better about the Jeju Island. Let them come to Jeju Island, buy souvenirs, and when we have special products of our own, sell it to outside people. And if they want to invest in Jeju Islands, they can invest more if we make internationalization. So, wider meaning, this is correct. Back then, one of the main slogan was think globally and act locally. That means we have to think in a global manner, but act in a local manner. So that was a vivid memory that I have. Before I go into my presentation, I think we have to think about what is internationalization and what is globalization. There are many people around the world, renowned people, defined globalization as, for example, as you can see in the proceedings, people, it is globalization is the process to integrate people into the international society. Very broad expression, and in a way, we don't know what it really means. So let's go into detail to refer to what Mr. Giddens said. He's the famous sociologist in UK. He had a really fantastic explanation. So the regions physically far away from each other, connected with each other to have a global size world society and strengthen their social relation. That's globalization. And then also there's a dictionary that we sociologists are usually use as a reference, the Oxford Dictionary. It says that globalization means that each and every sector of the earth is interconnected and increase the connectivity and also the system economically and culturally and transnationally connected with each other. When we combine all of this definition into one, that means this is the society where products are going to and fro and capitals and investment is going to and fro and everything is going to and fro from each other. Then what is the internationalization? That means as part of the globalization, internationalization can be explained and understood. And that is some of the discussion that we had. And the concept of the internationalization, in its concept, the boundary of one nation and another nation is very clear. But in a more relative manner, people can go from to each other. That is internationalization. Thinking about that, the internationalization and globalization, maybe this is it and that is that. It is difficult to draw a clear line. Rather, what we have to do is in globalization there is internationalization and in internationalization there's some part of the globalization. That is something that we can understand this. So here what is the main point here is that how to make Jeju Island as international place, and many people outside world come to Jeju Island and buy many things in Jeju Island and promote Jeju Island and contribute to the development of Jeju Island. And when we start to use the globalization, there was some events to make globalization as a widely used term. That was in France, where this globalization was first used. Not by using the term itself, but by using it in a literature. So that means it is globally used around the world. And one journal that is really, really widely used, that is Le Monde. Le Monde means globalization. So in French, one scholar wrote Le Monde as a Le Monde. That is globalization. When we translate it into English, it was translated as worldization. So that means world, and it is really difficult to pronounce and difficult to understand. That's why we use and adopted the term of global as globalization. That was the starting point of using globalization. That was about mid 1980 when we first used it, and it was actively discussed after that. And one of the achievements based on that discussion was the WTO. The WTO was invented back in 1995. That means when we first used the globalization back in mid 1910, and after 10 years, we have WTO into existence, and based on which we opened the era of free trade. And internationalization is something in the middle, which was invented back in 1991. So this Jeju Global Society Association, that means it is for the internationalization and globalization of Jeju Island. We are just on the edge and at the forefront of that movement as a leading entity. So we have to take pride in that fact. So I don't have much time to present, so I will shorten my remark. So it's because I really am proud of Jeju Global Society Association. So let me go back to my proceeding part. There was a second comprehensive plan for the international free city of Jeju Island. The result of it is not published yet. We have the concept paper for the third comprehensive plan, but we don't have the result of the second comprehensive plan, so I just inserted some part of it here. So some of the data that I attached here is the inbound tourist tally that I used as a basis to measure the internationalization of Jeju Island. In summary, from 2012 to 2020, the internationalization is mainly focused on China. So foreign tourists coming to Jeju Island, the highest proportion is on Chinese. Among 6.6 right now, about more than 1 million people, foreign Chinese people, are coming to Jeju Island every year, which is remarkable figure. And also real estate trade and the real estate owned by Chinese is among foreign people is more than 50%. And thinking about the amount of money when we convert it into money, then they own about 75% of the real estate value among them. So there are very high-end condominiums left there now that I saw in the newspaper. That means the proportion of the Chinese tourists is really high, and their inbound tour itself is really high. Then what should we go from here? What we have to think about is the East Asia is changing. So the time that we first discussed the internationalization and now the time is really different. In London a while ago, there was a G7 summit was held. So there were many advanced countries they discussed about how to encapsulate China. That was main agenda. So European countries and Western countries are participated in to discuss that one. And this rivalry between US and China for the hegemony is really high as well. So thinking about this geopolitical landscape, thinking about the location of Jeju Island, so this is the pathway for China to go to western area from the southern western area. That means they have to secure this focal point first to go further. There's no way for China not to have interest in Jeju Island. They have Senkaku Island, which is on dispute island between Japan and Chinese, and we have also Iodo Island in the middle. We have and Japan has Okinawa and Kyushu area there. So thinking about this geopolitical landscape, this Jeju Island should be the channel that Japan and China want to secure first. Thinking about that, the internationalization related discussion and also the concrete measures to it, when we discuss about it, we have to think about this political landscape and also situation and geopolitical situation should be something that we have to take into account and we have to go forward from then on. And this is the end of my presentation. And the detailed content can be discussed by the Vice Governor Kim later. Do you want to go on or do you want to finish? Yes, this is end of my presentation.
Yes, I think former Director General Kim pointed out a very important element, especially on China. What does international Jeju City means? And I think we have been dying to attract Chinese tourists to Jeju Island so far. And all the shadows casted by Chinese people are becoming issues in the world. I think it's time for us to really be cautious, and we need to restrain their rise. And the next speaker is Vice Governor Kim, the former Vice Governor of Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. I think he never retires. He is interested in local issues. He writes articles a lot, and now he even earns more money than before by running business. So I remember he is 10 years younger or older than me, 10 years a gap between, but I think he is going to work more and more with a full of passion. And also, I wrote a paper written by Kim Ho-sung, and I think the point that he made in his paper is rather a thing that I would like to ask all of you to pay attention to. And former Director General Kim mentioned about the Chinese element in internationalizing the Jeju Island. And to the Jeju provincial residents, they might not know what internationalization means, what the free international city would mean to them. They wouldn't know. So what is the key message of pursuing a free international city? And he pointed out that there's a difference, that there's a distinguish between free international city and international city. So do you want to be like international city or free city? I think that is something that can be answered by Vice Governor. And there's also a law, a special act on Jeju, and its act is quite broad, and it does not have this difference between the special act on the free international city. I think we really think that lawmakers need to reflect themselves on what they have in terms of enacting the two very similar acts. So, Vice Governor Kim, please start your remarks. I will give you plus 1 minute on top of 10 minutes. Thank you for introducing me that well. For the last 40 years, I've been serving as a government official and also under the administration of Kim Dae-jung. We predicted that the trend of the internationalization would come, exchanges of people, capital, and also product will happen. And it was an era where we already embraced the post-Hong Kong era. And back then there was East Asia Lab, and Mr. Shin asked me how can we reflect that onto Jeju, and also former President Kim very much focused on internationalization of Korea. And then it was when the Special Act on the International Free City was established. And there's nobody who can check whether we have achieved the free exchange of people, product, and capital. That's what the free international city means. For the past 20 years, have we achieved that? What's the reason? And I'm going to simplify my presentation. I think you need to ask me lots of questions. Then I can answer all the questions that you may have. As a government official for several decades in the past, I rather opposed to big government. I think we need to pursue small government, paying less tax. That way, businesses can be more active. But I think our government is already big. So I think the track that we are on, I'm not quite sure. And also the foreign policy announced by Moon Jae-in administration, I'm not also sure about that. I wish I was given more time, but I better stop here and then take your questions. Why and how we come to build international city, international Jeju province. Back in 2006, there was a Local Autonomy Act and a Special Act was established in order to pursue the Jeju province as the free international province. So the existing law was enough. But as we want it to be like a special self-governing province, which raises the issue of equality with other cities, other provinces, there are more than 4,600 cases came to Jeju Island. But last year, what was it? Local autonomy era 2.0 has arrived upon us, and other local governments are also coming together. But the era 2.0 local autonomy announced by Moon Jae-in administration, although it is out of the topic today, but in words, they say that they're going to localize it, the level equivalent to federal state. I think which is only possible in big country with diversity in ethnicity, like the U.S. and China. They are federal states. However, local autonomy is not going to be achieved that way because our government is controlling the budget, right? We ask for it, but budget never comes down. I can give you more time if you need. So until last year, my vision was clearer, but as Woo Geum-min, our governor, became the governor of Jeju, he came up with an idea on how to attract investment. So we succeeded in attracting huge investment. And back then, Mr. Ko was the president of the Jeju Global Society Association. Back then, as we attracted investment, huge investment came from China. And the original goal of the Act on the Free International City establishment meant to attract investment in order to help marginalize the businesses in Jeju Island. That was the purpose of making Jeju as the autonomous province. The new governor took office as administration was changed from former President Kim Dae-jung and to former President Roh Moo-hyun. Of course, the focus placed by each administration was different, and President Noh focused on decentralization and autonomy. So, as an exemplary model, Jeju special governing province became a very exemplary model. In theory, there's a Parkinson law. The fixed number of government officials is reported to governor. You would remember that time, right? We call it like he is given too much authority as the governor. And there are members of the opposing party who are opposed to the authority of the governor. So as the status as the special self-governing province, one government official in Gyeonggi province would be in charge of the certain number of residents, and depends on that number we can determine whether that province is a big province or a small province. I think you should know about all this. Please turn to page 53. On the page number 53, you can see the number of residents that are handled by a single number of government official. It might not be precise, but it has been submitted by the Ministry of Public Administration and Security. And in Seoul area, one government official is in charge of 520 in Seoul, and Busan 418, and also Sejong 156, and Jeju it is 109. So each government official in Jeju is in charge of 109. And considering the population is 600,000, that means already Jeju province is big government, a big province. What about the budget? Including administrative fee and also headcount, we spend about 2 trillion Korean won. But I think this big money should be given to businesses. Again, free movement of people, capital, and a product needs to be guaranteed, which is the original purpose of making Jeju as an international province. I think that way, all the improvement should have been felt by residents. There was one time that we attracted 2.5 million Chinese people came, and Chinese people tried to buy up all the land of Jeju province. So this is something that we have to restrict. And on our way here, I talked with our former Director General, with Kim. We should not only focus on attracting people from abroad, but we have to talk about how can we make businesses in Jeju as our top 50 or top 100 businesses. Rather than making investment in companies abroad, I think we should focus on nurturing domestic companies. But that is only limited to Shilla and Shilla Hotel and Samsung, which is a tourism industry. But we should attract companies from the IT sector. So we attracted investment a lot, but I think that way people who are coming to Jeju abuse the Jeju island, and even there was an accident. For example, the people try to build like a resort near residential area. That's something that we should abandon. And Mayor Kim, who passed away, we had to choose whether we are going to take a innovative path or gradual path. But we had to choose innovative path. That way, we could approach decentralization, which is pursued by President No. But we could go in a dual track, like gradual and innovative track. So what does the free international city mean? That means two things. So 시군구 municipality autonomy is definitely related to democracy. But I think Jeju back then focused on efficiency. And that's why I think too much power and authority is placed on the governor of Jeju. And now we're trying to go back to square. We have to revive, we have to restore the local democracy with the municipalities. So we should have chosen gradual track to improve Jeju province. So this is something that I regret. Please turn to page 48. And there are three heads of the municipalities: 시군구, 제주, and 서귀포, and also Nam Jeju. So the one person is passed away already. I think wish he that we could pursue this track. Please look at page 48. There was a head of the Constitutional Court who opposed the abolishment of municipalities named Chusoni. And what the person said was that in order to abolish municipalities, referendum is very important, which was conducted already. And equally, there should be consensus built among the municipalities and councils on that. We should have listened opinions from the council. So I think if there is anyone who is interested in local administration, you need to make sure that you are open to their opinions. So I better stop here. If you need anything to be clarified, please ask me questions so that we can develop Jeju province. And I know all of you have a full of knowledge, and you need to correctly understand the history. And without it, you might make a wrong decision. There will be a huge difference in making decisions in the future. In December last year, Moon Jae-in administration announced Local Autonomy 2.0. And it seems the direction is flowing to the citizen autonomy, which is encouraging. I'm not sure whether I have to cite it or not, but I want to ask your opinions. For now, we do have a dual system, right, between council and mayor. But in the UK, they have integrated a system. That means when the members of the councils are elected, then they can also serve as the head of the local government. I think that way we will not have opposition in building another airport. But integrated system, that too much power might be given to the member of a council. So maybe in dual system, we can strike a balance between the power of a council and the power of the local government. But we were going to change the system to integrated system when it is agreed by the resident. There are no such local government to do that. We failed to become the free international city as we wanted. So maybe we could go to the direction of the council executive integrated system. So the member of the council can become the director general and also head of the local government. So there are many cases around the world of the integrated system. Of course, there will be weaknesses, of course. So we need to really think about that carefully. A member of one national assembly proposed to build a special act for the free international. Proposed that we need to take away the word from the free, from the existing act to make it as an international free city. And also, you need to give us opinions, but because I believe that the word free is very important, right? Free means we can alleviate regulations for businesses so that we can help them more. So when the law is revised, it becomes a special act on the international city, but that would include other cities, right? And through the small government, we can think up with better ways to support businesses. That's the difference between a free international city and just international city. I know that a bill has been proposed at the National Assembly. Really, is this right? But there's no opinion that we are getting about that. So yesterday, we talked about that the Jeju city is a very empirical city. And to make it successful, we have to talk about it a lot. But all the meetings are separately held by the member of the council, member of the National Assembly for the comprehensive development plan for Jeju province. I'm sorry to intervene, but I will have to stop you here. I would like to add that we are special self-governing province from the governor of Kim, and the number of government officials is increased by 1,000, and also under the governor of another 1,000 were added by establishing all different kinds of centers, and they are covered by major insurance as well. When I was a chairperson of the Jeju Development Committee, when we do not have municipalities, then the number of government officials would decrease, and the annual budget will be reduced to 80 billion Korean won. And he mentioned that we have to promote, we have to really nurture a private sector, and free international city means more support is provided for the private sector. But now we spend too much money on the public sector. I'm not sure how we are going to handle it in the future. There are so many centers around us and across Jeju province. This is somewhat problematic. And as the Vice Governor has already mentioned, there's no single shopping outlet which is successful in Jeju Island. This way, how can we make it a very successful free international city? International school is successful, but that's the only thing. So many capitals were drawn to Jeju Island, but for tourism purposes, mainly from Chinese. And they do that across the world. They buy their houses, and they have their people brought over to Jeju Island for business. And also ethnic Korean Chinese, they do interpret, and that's why Chinese people come under heavy criticism across the world. So they come here and give nothing good for Jeju residents. And there are companies like Hong Kong and Singapore, which is somewhat distant from the situation of Jeju. I think we really need to draw a new landscape for Jeju. You mentioned about the council executive integrated system, but I think that does not befit the characteristics of Jeju Island. It is too premature for Korea to adopt that system. In order to successfully implement that, then when you see the system, the number of council members will decrease. And under the integrated system, mayor and governor becomes a symbolic person, and they even elect a person entitled the city manager who can do the administrative affairs. There are so many things for us to prepare to adopt the integrated system. Vice Governor, if I give you the title Director General of the local government, can you do it well? It is too prompt to do that.
특별자치도
That's difficult. That's very difficult. So it's a special self-governing province. But we have to also think about the public officials and others. And I talk too much. Please, I want you to better understand the situation. And also, we invited Mr. Jung Gu-hyun from overseas. He is not here physically. He is participating in through online. So, Mr. Jung, are you there? Can we see him? Professor Zhang, how are you doing? How have you been? It's really great to see you here. Of course, Professor Zhang, you love and you care Jeju Island. You participate in so many seminars, but you couldn't be here today together with us in person, but you couldn't, so you're online in participation. So today we are talking about the Jeju International Free City. How far has Jeju Internationalization come, and what should we do go forward? That's the theme today. So you have been the former head of the Samsung Economic Research Institute. So you don't have to be binded with your proceedings only. Rather, let's focus on what should we do better in terms of Jeju Island from the viewpoint of the external professional. Please refrain yourself from talking more than 10 minutes. Thank you very much. President, it's been a long time since we saw each other. Please understand me for being here online. I don't know much about the Jeju Island, so rather than talking about details, maybe I will talk about the internationalization and also implications on Jeju Island. So thinking about the internationalization, I think internationalization the same thing with the globalization. So I define globalization as lower boundary and shrinking time and place, increasing trade and movement, and also changing of the human society and international order. All the process is globalization. So each of these is a phases. First is the lower boundary. The lower boundary means regulation is loosened, and time and space shrinking, that is the technological development. So the motive for globalization is the loosed regulation and technological development. These two things are key factors for globalization. And since 1960, the World Economic Order, this is based on the free trade on trade and capital. That means less intervention of government. So here we're thinking about the Jeju International Free City or just Jeju International City. We have different opinions among the panelists, but I think the internationalization itself has big implications with it. So when we talk about the globalization, some people, some scholars say this is the end of the globalization. This is post-globalization era. But I don't agree with that idea. Rather, thinking about the situation after the World War One, we did have globalization back in 19th century as well. That was briefly from 1965 to 1994. That was first globalization led by UK. So when we combine this into the big picture, since 1892 now, it's about 160 years. Among those time from 1960 to 1990, those 30 years, when we subtract those 30 years, about 130 years, we have this globalization trend, which is really huge meaning to us. Then, what is globalized and what has been globalized? We did an analysis on it. So, one report from McKinsey, I will use it as a reference here. There are five flows in globalization: product, service, money, knowledge, and people. So that means these five are the flows in movement and make globalization. And product, service, and money, these are three traditional global flows. That's what we call it. But these traditional flows, back in 2008 financial repression slowed down, their flow was slowed down as well. But so since then, compared to GDP, their proportion was reduced from 50 to 40%, roughly. So that's why people call it the end of globalization. But here, what we need to look at is, in addition to these three global flows, traditional ones, which are slowed down, but the flow of the knowledge is rather increasing. So since 2008, based on the knowledge and data, it's a transition and the flow is increasing as well. Since 2005 to 2020, for the past 15 years, the flow of the data around the world increased 200 times. That's thanks to the broadband communications network and international network has expanded and that transmit lots of data. And since 2010, everything is being digitalized. The point that I want to make here is that for the past 160 years, traditional globalization has been on. But that traditional globalization is in transition with the digital globalization, and this is not something that we can go back. So, in the past, the loosened regulation and and technological development are two factors for globalization. Now we put much more weight on technological development. And in the middle of my proceeding, I wrote about the U.S.-China conflict. So back in 2018, July, the U.S. put a tariff on China on their export, but still its impact is just limited. It's been 3 years, so we cannot see the biggest impact from it yet. And next, I wrote about the pandemic and its impact on globalization on Jeju Island. So, as you're well aware, the COVID-19 pandemic restricted the movement of people among five flows to make globalization. Actually, people-to-people movement is one that is restrained the most, that affect the tourism, aviation, and marine movement the most. So about 75% of the business in Jeju Island is on tourism. That's why it hit hardest on Jeju Island. However, people-to-people movement is restricted, but rather due to that fact, people try to move online. That means digitalization is something that the pandemic affects the most because pandemic speeded up the digitalization 5 times faster or 6 times faster. Maybe it has shortened the time that we can do the digitalization faster. That means I told you that from 2000 to 2020, the speed of digitalization and data movement is 200 times higher, but I think it'll be much higher due to the pandemic. In case of Jeju Island, our economy is heavily dependent on the people movement. Aviation Jeju estimated compared to THAAD, which affects Jeju Island about 1%, but now the COVID-19 pandemic affect our business about 8%. That's why our impact from the COVID-19 is 8 times higher than the THAAD event in the past. So among those 5 flows, one of the most important thing is people-to-people movement. But thankfully, since 2010, the population in Jeju Island is increasing. That is a good thing, and Jeju is doing a very good job. And every year we are having increased population. And from 2019, after the THAAD event, the movement itself it was reduced. I think it's because of the reduced investment from China. As a conclusion, the globalization among those 5 leading flows for globalization, product, people, and data are main thing. And Jeju Island is heavily dependent on people, which will be an ongoing trend. But for Jeju Island to be a digital center, that is difficult. Because of that, to make a globalization for Jeju Island, we have to put our eyes on environment. There are many things that people are focusing on. First is digitalization. Second is the climate change. Third is the reducing the poverty. So we have the vision of Green Jeju. So that is showing that we are taking a leading role in clean and green Jeju. So big trend in the world is a digitalization, but digitalization itself it is difficult for us to compete against large and metropolitan cities for digital centers. So we have to put focus on environment, climate change, and carbon zero trend. We can take a leading role, taking the initiative and going further. Then our international free city we can ride the flow of the internationalization. I will stop my remarks here. Thank you very much.
소장님께서
Thank you. From few years ago, yes, there's an agenda set by Jeju, our province, to go to the direction of eco-friendly province. I'm sure there will be questions raised from audience. I think we have a speaker from abroad. She is an renowned expert, I heard, and her name is Mystic Voice. Yes, her name is somewhat unfamiliar to Korean people. I think she is a Chinese citizen. I would like to invite her to the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have looked forward to this opportunity for a long time. So today, I want to thank Kambasa for inviting me to this forum. And I want to speak from my own experience as a foreigner who loves Jeju very much and who has come to Jeju in 2017 and who has fell in love with Jeju and held many concerts for healing the Sasam victims, healing the wound, and for meditation and transformation in Jeju Stone Park. And I also want to speak from my experience as an expert on East and West and Middle East cooperation. Because first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dongbang Miaowen. My original name is Li Xinqian. I was born in China. I went to US, studied at Stanford University. I'm also a graduate of Tsinghua University. I'm Chinese American. So when you speak about China-US conflict, I can speak to you about that too. So from 1992 until now, I have worked as an expert on cross-cultural communication and internationalization of China. I opened China to the Western countries, US, Europe, Australia, Canada, and the Middle East. Middle East especially, Iran, Gulf countries, the 6 Gulf countries, the oil and the money, and also Israel. So, and then I transformed myself into a sacred chanting musician and founder of Journey of Harmony. And I traveled around the world to promote a new culture of harmony between the nations, between the cultures, connecting the hearts and nations in oneness. Because we need to have a transformation of heart and mind. We need to have a new culture of harmony. Then we can have long-lasting peace and prosperity. So Journey of Harmony has traveled around the world 250,000 kilometers and attracted support of over 300 top musicians and artists and filmmakers in many, many countries, and also presidents of Business Chamber of Commerce and ministers and leading personalities from many countries. So when I came to Jeju Island in 2017, I fell in love with Jeju because of the environment. Now, Jeju is beautiful. It's really a masterpiece of creation by Salomon de Halma. I fell in love with the people. Jeju people are very unique, very special. And I fell in love with the culture. You know, the myth and legend of Salomon de Halma and the moon worshipping and the Tamna, Tamna kingdom. Of course, now we have very little trace of it, but I think there's very few foreigners who have gone so deep into the Jeju local culture and mingled with the people so deeply and appreciate the value of Jeju. And I promoted Jeju in my world travels and concerts and international conferences. I promoted Jeju. And so people say, where are you from? I said, I'm from China, but I love Jeju. So they say, you're not promoting China, you're promoting Jeju. Why? Because I see the world needs a new message, needs a change. The wind of change is blowing across the globe by coronavirus. We need to wake up. We need to wake up and change from the old paradigm, only focusing on economic development. We need to focus, we need to change that, not overdevelopment, but go back to nature and go back to connect with our root and connecting with each other. And I see Jeju is an ideal place for that. Why? Because Jeju is between China, Japan, and Korea. Jeju can become the seat of Asian Union in the future. And I have promoted Jeju in my concerts in Israel and in Gulf countries. These countries, they are full of conflict. And Jeju, as an island of peace, as we can imagine, like, I promoted Jeju as a second home, the oasis for people of Israel, and the second home for the people of Gulf countries. And they fell in love with it. They want to come. Corona will finish soon. We need to think about Jeju, what kind of policies, what kind of value we can propose to the international community. If only internationalization without focus, then you lose your competitivity. Jeju is perfect as an island of healing, meditation, and transformation. So I want to propose that in Jeju's future development, that we focus on restoring Jeju's local culture, and we focus on how we can create a culture of harmony between the Jeju local residents and the mainland people of Korea, and the international community. Because in my experience of working in Jeju for the last 4 years, and especially I stayed in Jeju since the beginning of Corona, 2020, and I prayed a lot in Jeju. I prayed along the coast, I prayed in the forest, I prayed in the Orem. My experience in Jeju, I see that we need to work together. This exclusivity needs to break. And we need to invite people who love Jeju, international experts, to join our discussions. For example, I have promoted Jeju to many of my top-level connections in the world. I spoke to them about Jeju, and my love for Jeju affects them. And last year, I especially want to mention, last year, October 25th, with the support of Kambasa and many other Jeju dear friends, local artists, we opened Jeju's Heart Silk Road with the world. And we used Silmonde Harmon's myth and legend, and Tamna Kingdom's The Seven Stars. We incorporated, and Kambasa's tea ceremony and the dance of Jeju, and many other local Jeju artists joined me with spiritual music and connected with over 20 countries. I mobilized top artists, filmmakers, dancers, musicians from around the world, from Germany, from Israel, from United States, from China, many, many people to participate. Even in Corona age, they participated by sending videos, messages of love and congratulation for the opening of Jeju's Heart Silk Road with the world. So my message, because the time is running off, my message is that we need to work together, and we need to focus on the unique advantage of Jeju. And we need to make, for policymakers, we need to make policies that will attract people, attract high class tourism, or before you attract tourism, you need to attract high class expertise, international experts to Jeju, and work with you together so that Jeju can really become the model of harmony living, healthy living, the land of transformation, healing, and meditation, and a new world civilization, and the World Unity Center in Jeju. We can solve problems. We can solve the conflicts of North Korea and South Korea in Jeju. We can solve the problem between China, Japan, and Korea in Jeju. We can solve even the conflict of Middle East in Jeju. Why? Because in Jeju, we invite these people to come to Jeju for healing, for meditation, for rest in nature, and we create cultural festivals and programs for them. You have beautiful food, beautiful nature, and just 1 minute. This is a very important message. For example, the Gulf countries people, they have lots of money, and they cannot stay in their own home half of the time. And Jeju has a similar environment, yet much better climate for them. And it's very close to China. So it's a very attractive place if we make Jeju a second home for Gulf country people to come here for healing. Okay? And then Israel people, they will come. They are full of creativity because here is close to China. So we need to think creatively how to make Jeju have that value, offer that value and uniqueness to the world, to the international community. And I will be very happy to work together with you to create a bright future for Jeju. I love Jeju. Thank you.
아주 특이한 분.
Yes, we have a very special person. I think she really delivered a very important message to the resident. She pointed out that we should go to the direction of culture and environment. I think what she said needs to be heard by policymakers, especially when they make policies on Jeju. And they might doubt, is it really feasible? It is feasible. I think her opinion is very valuable for policymakers, but unfortunately we do not have no one from the Jeju provincial government. It is unfortunate. When we hold this kind of meeting, I think high-level people should come, and they really need to listen to opinions from people at the practical level and from the bottom. In an early stage of Jeju Global Society Association, even governor came, although he cannot be staying with us until the end, but at least the governor showed up and had a lunch together. But as time goes by, I think the communication between residents and the local government rather disappears. It is really unfortunate. And last speaker is James Sean, director of the center at UH.
제주도에서 피스콜 했어요.
He was the Peace Corps activity in Jeju Island. His wife is Korean. That's why he knows much about Jeju Island and its reality. One time I went to Capitol in US and he's working hard. I mean, he worked hardest among those people. Let him have his time for presentation. You're getting old. It's been a long time since we saw each other. When we first met, you were so young, but that time has passed so fast.
네. 저거 갖다
Aloha.
노을방에.
Aloha from Hawaii. I am probably not. Actually, there's a lag in my video. Can you hear me okay?
예.
Anyway,
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
okay. I probably am not as qualified as everybody else to be on this panel or in the forum. My contribution is that I have observed Jeju up close, literally, for the last 50 years. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in the 1970s. That was so long ago that Chungmu Beach had no hotels. There was no top tone development. the Cal Hotel was not there. Later, in the 1980s, Hawaii and Jeju had a sister state relationship. And we had many conferences between our experts on how to develop tourism in Hawaii. My remarks reflect not only my views, but the views of my friends and Jeju people that I have known for many years. I think Jeju can be proud of being idealistic. Um, the idealistic island, if you want, for the last 20 years. And the Governor Wan just signed an agreement with the governor of Washington State for green initiatives. That's very idealistic as well. But one of the questions I want to pose is, can a place become too overly international for its own good? Today, Jeju, I think, is slipping from being an independent province to being more of an economic colony of those powerful interests from outside. It's owned by the rich and powerful. It has far too many tourists, condos, high rises. The farming and fishing sectors are shrinking, according to your previous speaker. Production of food is only 8% of your economy. And with the new naval base, I sense that your dream of being the island of peace may be compromised. You may be seduced by military money, jobs, and sailors looking for a good time. If we compare Hawaii and Jeju before the pandemic, Hawaii, all our islands, that's Waikiki, Oahu, Kauai, Maui, Big Island volcanoes, all islands, 10 million visitors only. Now, Jeju is about the same size as Maui. Maui had 3 million. But Jeju had 15 million visitors before the pandemic. That means you're being overwhelmed with traffic, with tourisms, with just dealing with garbage and sewage disposal. Every basic service has got to be overwhelmed when a small island is dealing with 15 million tourists. We must ask, is this prosperity or a colony that is maybe too narrowly focused on economic development? We have to ask ourselves, with that many, are we taking care of our residents? How many or what percent of Jeju residents are vaccinated? Are they just disposable servants to this colony? Is Jeju an ideal or a victim? Taking a lesson from Hawaii, we love tourism so much, we can't do anything else. We talk about diversifying all the time. We cannot do it. It is basically like a drug. We are addicted to tourism. And that is a lesson that I hope that Jeju can escape from. Now, this is the year 2021. What if we imagine we're 10 years into the future? It's 2031. What could Jeju have accomplished? Here's my top 10 hopes for accomplishing in that next 10 years. First, getting control, scaling back the excessive land use, the development, the casinos, and the tourists. If you cannot control this, you cannot control many of the goals that you set for yourselves. Number two, placing the residents first in health, in vaccinations, in welfare, in financial support, including control of visual pollutions, such as a to be built 38-story building, and even a better mass transit system to unclog the roads. Third, we know that education for sustainable peace and prosperity is going to require curriculum at graduate, college, and high school level. Who's going to do that curriculum? Maybe looking back 10 years in the future, Jeju became the place to develop an educational curriculum at the university, to the forum, other venues, to be the curriculum center for peace and prosperity. Fourth, all poor people need access to finance, to low interest loans, to basic finance, to crawl out of poverty. What if Jeju became a hub, a headquarter for a new kind of international sustainability bank? A bank that focused on helping the poorest in Asia, Pacific, and beyond. And as a partner with that, Jeju Tehak became the center where the best and the brightest of youth would have to go to learn responsible, sustainable finance and banking. It is not there yet. Could Jeju be the place even more than Seoul or other big cities? It was mentioned earlier about digital globalization. We know that cybersecurity is going to be an issue for everyone in the future. What if Jeju developed a state-of-the-art cybersecurity training institute? Cutting edge digital, cutting edge cybersecurity. Could you do it? I believe it could be done. It is certainly needed. It is something that would serve the rest of Asia and the Pacific extremely well. Sixth, global educational leadership. Who's going to do the development of the curriculum? As I mentioned, that can be done. It should be done on Jeju. Seventh, to lead means to demonstrate. An island role model for green energy is already developing faster than other places. Good for Jeju, good for everyone involved. But another part of walking the walk is being able to feed yourself. The production of food, fisheries, agriculture is in decline, significantly in decline. Only 8% of your economy is producing food. Don't be like Hawaii. We must import 90% of everything that we import. Could Jeju step up and be the place where at least a majority of food was produced right on the island? That sustainability is so crucial for so many places. It needs to be demonstrated. Number 8, where Jeju is way ahead, is in diplomacy and being the place where people want to come to do their mediation, their summits, whether it's at Chungmun, national leaders. Jeju should be able to compete with Singapore, with Geneva, with other places. You already have a record for that. My dream is that you continue to be the place where when Putin and Biden have to meet again, they've got to come to Jeju. We have many idealistic volunteers, and the last time I was in Korea, we were told that Korea actually has its own Peace Corps. Could Jeju be the place for training and language for volunteers, both domestic and international? That language, that cultural training that the previous speaker talked about, Jeju culture, these idealistic youth want and need training to be in programs where they can make a difference. And finally, and this was mentioned in the youth conference yesterday, democracy requires ethical, factual journalism. Could Jeju become a safe zone for an international hub of broadcast and print journalism that is vetted, ethical, high standard? People are tired of just opinion makers in the news. We yearn for high quality professional journalism throughout East Asia, throughout the Pacific, throughout the world. If Jeju really wanted to place itself on that international map, become the place where people say, I know it's true. I heard it on Jeju International Television.
예, 예.
So to conclude, I think the younger generations are a little better than us. They want more than money. They want meaning in their lives. They want the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of the most needy beyond us. And the challenge is, we know these great conferences are terrific, but a conference is not an outcome. It will take creating institutions that sustain themselves. And that's my hope. Thank you for the honor of inviting me.
예, 예.
Aloha.
고맙습니다.
Thank you very much.
예,
Thank you for our 6 presenters, and the organizer told me to finish by 35 past 10. I think we have rather too many 6 presenters for this short session. I went to so many meetings like this one, but I've never heard the opinions this much precious from the people for the development of Jeju. So please, Chairperson Kang, I think we need to collect the opinions shared at this meeting and distribute it to relevant personnel. I think we only have 5 minutes. Is there anyone who really want to speak up for the development of Jeju? We talked about transition of our paradigm. Apart from the Vice Governor Kim, all other 5 speakers, I think they share a common ground. And so, Chairman Kang, do you have other opinions? Maybe you can speak in either Korean or English, but very briefly. So, Jeju Global Society Association started off as a think tank. And people criticize that it is a gathering of elite people. We, I think, contributed to set the direction for the development of Jeju. What I'm trying to say is that what we really cannot miss out is that either our association or Jeju Forum really need to set a clear goal and purpose for the right direction to pursue and to guarantee the happiness of our residents, either in a free international city or international city, it will not mean anything. We have to come up with the right methods, right means by putting our heads together. I think our consciousness and our knowledge are very important. I think there's a role for association to play. If there's no opinion from the floor, Vice Governor Kim would like to, will you say something? Yes, just for 1 minute. We have talked about the direction to pursue, right? For the last 40 years as a government official, I have heard so many good ideas about the right direction. The problem is how we can implement. I think implementation is up to the executive body, right? As the president said, we need to collect the opinions, and I insisted that we have to reflect the precious opinions onto implementation. For the last 30 years, we have held a numerous number of meetings like this. Thank you for good opinions that you shared. We have to collect it. I think we need to write an article or newspaper. Without implementation, it will not mean anything. So Jeju Global Society Association really needs to act up. I think that's what he is trying to say. So holding a seminar like this one should not end in itself, and we should really act and put this idea into action. The time is right because our association is 30 years old. We have done with the organization of association, right? So through collective wisdom and also collective consciousness, we have to act. We heard so many good ideas at the meeting today. I have prepared a lot before attending this session. I studied about how the global leaders think about the Jeju province and the ideas about the future direction of Jeju Island. What do you think? And will you give us a big hand if you agree with what I say? Wish we were given more time for more discussion, but due to time constraints, we better stop here. With the former head Chung and also member of the National Assembly Chung, thank you for attending today's session at a busy schedule. And also I would like to thank for presenters as well as a participant at our presence in this room. As we continue to discuss and share and exchange ideas, I'm sure step by step we will improve Jeju. We are sure of that. Thank you so much.